Alrighty guys, I'm back at you today with another video. Today we're going to be going over the replacing of the rims on our van, as well as sandblasting and powder coating and prepping them. So I bought these new set of rims for the van. The reason I'm changing out the rims is that the current rims that are on the van have fat tires on the back and skinnies up front. Just not a fan of that style, so we're swapping them over to skinnies all the way around, or just regular size tires all the way around. So I got these 4 set of rims. I'm not sure what they're off of. I can't figure out where they're manufactured from or anything like that. But they've given me quite a bit of a headache. So I realized when I looked around online and when I measured the van, I thought I had 4.5 or 5 by 4.5 inch lugs. So there is, 5 by 4.5 inch lugs. So we got 5 lugs here, and I read 4.5. Now, if you never dealt with 5 lugs before, they measure differently than 4 and 6 lugs. So I can show you over here on this wheel adapter. So, bring that out a little bit more. So to measure 5 lugs, you go from the outside of the bolt hole to the center of the bolt hole. So when you measure 4 lugs, 6 lug, 8 lug, you always measure center to center. So that's what I originally did, is I measured center to center. So if you measure center to center on these, it comes out to 4 1/4. So there is such thing as a 5 by 4 1/4, a 5 by 4 1/2, and a 5 by 4 3/4. And that's what gave me a big runaround. So when I measured this, I measured it as 5 by 4 1/2, or 4 1/4, because I measured center to center. And so I got wrong size rims and this, that, and everything else. Finally, I got these rims. When I bought them, they were supposed to be 5 by 4 1/2. I didn't think to take a tape measure with me, and the guy actually sold me 5 by 4 3/4. So we got to use a set of wheel adapters. So that's what we got right here. So this will take us from 5 by 4 1/2 to 5 by 4 3/4. So anyhow, moving on with this project. These are the rims we've got. We're going to use them. We're going to use wheel adapters, which I'm not a big fan of wheel adapters, but it's where we're at. So right now, these rims are cooling off. So we're going to sandblast and powder coat them. So they just came out of my oven. This is a homemade oven that I made. If anyone's interested in how I built this oven, let me know down below. I'd be happy to do a video going over a tutorial on how to do it. Built this probably about 1.5 years ago, and it's worked really good ever since. But it was all homemade. Probably did for under 200 bucks. So anyhow, and then over there we got the sandblasting unit, which is being run by my tow behind air compressor, which is out there. And so anyhow, the first step when you're going to sandblast and powder coat rims is you want to off gas them. So that's what I just did. When we get ready to cook these rims and we cook the powder on, it's going to be baked at 400 degrees. So in order to outgas something, what it is that with metal, gas can be stuck inside the pores, so to speak. And so when you put the powder coat on, it can release that gas, which will in turn cause your finish to bubble. So what you do is you'll outgas something. So if the final powder is going to cook at 400 degrees, we'll put these in the oven at 450 degrees for an hour. And the theory is that if you cook them at a higher temperature for an hour, then that should cause all the gas that's going to come out. So now that they've been off gas and they're cooling down, as soon as they cool down, we're going to take them, we're going to put them in our sandblasting unit over there. And then after they're sandblasted, then we can go ahead and spray them and put them in the oven. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get a good video of me sandblasting them, but I will try and get a better video of me powder coating them. So I'm going to go ahead and get these sandblasted. Once that's finished, I'll be back at you. All right, guys, it's actually a few days later. Ran into a little bit of a hiccup. So we did get these ones sandblasted, but we had to make some modifications. So I originally tried to use this blast cabinet out here, and while the rims fit in there, they did not fit great. So it was just really hard to get the rims into a position where I can look through that glass up top and get a be able to see and make sure I got everything properly blasted. And so I went ahead and built this cabinet, which is something I've been planning to do for a while. I stole the arms off of that blast cabinet, and then I'm got a piece of glass from Home Depot, which looks like I might have beaten up pretty good. So I might have to flip this glass over here shortly. But they're pretty inexpensive, and I designed the glass to be easily removable because I knew that that was going to be an item that I frequently had to replace. Inside here, I built a table that I can easily break down in case I want to actually climb inside the blast cabinet to do some bigger parts. And I'm using it to try and collect all the dust in here so that eventually I'll be able to come back and sweep it up, sift it, and use it over again. Because the Sandblast media goes for about $20 a bag, and it certainly seems good enough to reuse again. So I just got this from a metal establishment, and then cut down some of this little C channel, these 2x4s. I got these two lights up here, which do a pretty good job of keeping it nice and bright. And what a world difference it makes to actually have space to move something around while you're sandblasting. So everything went smoothly after I got this built. So now I'm going to go ahead and try and get these powder coated. All right, guys. So I got these taken out, and they're fresh out of the sandblaster, so they're still covered in dust. So I'm going to go ahead and get these brushed off, and then after that I can go ahead and sandblast them. So I'm not doing anything else to them, but you want to make sure you do not touch them with your bare skin. If you're going to have to touch them, make sure you have gloves on. I got rubber gloves if I got to touch them for any reason, but otherwise I try to just grab it by this hook up here because I don't care about getting glass or powder on there. So once we get these blown off, they can go right from there to coated to into the oven. Now, something I want you to notice here, to my shame, is that you'll see that I don't have great coverage on a couple of these little spots. And what that is that these rims were originally painted, and I did not get them sandblasted thoroughly enough. So that's why there's areas where I'm not getting good adhesion, or any adhesion at all, because that paint is not magnetic, and so the powder won't stick to it. So something I did on these rims over here, which is not the right way to do it, is that I did the one coat on them, and then after they dried and after they got nice and hot, I pulled them out and I did what they might call hot flocking, where I threw some more powder over the top of it. So it covered up pretty well, except you'll notice some little areas where it got a little yellow. So this is absolutely not the right way to do that. If I was doing this for somebody else, I would pull them back out and go throw them back in the sandblaster and get them cleaned up the rest of the way. But these rims were a pain in the butt to sandblast. I probably spent close to 20 minutes each sandblasting them and just trying to get in each one of these nooks and crannies. So an easier way to do this would have been to put paint stripper through the whole thing. Because most of the paint came off pretty easily because I outgassed them first in the oven. So that made most of the paint fall off, but for the areas where it didn't, I had to really sit on it in order for it to get that paint off. It must have been that good old paint that they don't sell no more. So just a word to the wise, don't do what I'm doing, but if you are going to do what I'm doing, this is what I am doing. So, all right, well, I'm going to get this last rim into the oven. That'll cook for 10 minutes, and then I'll try and get a video of me hot flocking it. Alright guys, I just took these out of the oven. You can see the hot flocking did help cover up some of the lack of coverage. Like I said, I still don't recommend that as a way to do it, but I'm on a little bit of a time crunch to keep moving forward. Same thing with this one over here, but you can see a couple of the yellow spots where it's turning the wrong color just because of the imperfections. So, I mean, they're going to be getting dirty quickly when they go down the road anyhow, but not really quality I would be happy with. I certainly wouldn't, if I was going to do this for somebody, I certainly wouldn't give them this kind of quality, but it'll be good enough for us. So, but the rest of the coating looks pretty good. Anyhow, these are going to cool down now, and then tomorrow I'm going to be taking these to the tire place to get the new tires mounted, and so the next video will be us getting ready to install the wheel spacers and the rims and tires onto the van itself. So I'll be back to you in a few days with that. Alright guys, we're getting ready to install the wheel adapters on this now, as well as the rims. I did both the ones on the other side just to make sure they went on smoothly. Little hiccup I noticed on these ones up front is that they have these little rings around here from, I guess, where they're pressed in. So when you put these on, they don't seem to sit quite flush. You can see there's a little bit of a gap in there. So I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I took the studs and I put the nuts on the studs and just sent them home. And I guess since these are made out of aluminum, they probably deformed to accept that little bit of protrusion sticking out. So I'll go ahead and record a time lapse of them going on. Oh, and another thing is when I'm putting these studs on, I'm using a blue Loctite. I know a lot of people suggest red Loctite when you're putting these wheel adapters on. Others just say if you torque them to the right spec, then you don't have to worry about any form of Loctite. I figure I go right in the middle and go with the blue Loctite. And I figure sending them home with the impact should get them up to spec. Spec is 75 foot-pounds, so I should be getting well past that with my impact. But I tried to test it with my torque wrench, but I wasn't able to get that on all the way. Or I'm sorry, I wasn't able to put the torque wrench on and spin it without the whole drum spinning. So anyhow. Alright, so you can see after I tightened it up all the way around, we don't have a gap anymore, so it seems like it sucked it in pretty good. So another thing I wanted to note was that I had to use a thin wall socket in order to get in here. And another thing to note is that these nuts are metric. So even though they're standard thread nuts, these ones were metric. So these were a cheap brand off of Amazon. I think they were 80 bucks for all 4 of them. But they feel pretty good quality, and everything else seems good. So, but just take note that you need to use a thin wall wrench. You can't use a regular impact. So. All right, guys, sorry about that. I forgot to press record when I was finishing putting the front wheel on. But I'm back to doing this rear one. I want to show that this rear is a little bit different. See, this one sits flush all by itself normally. So I'm not sure why the hubs are different from the front and the back. I don't know if that's by design or just by coincidence, but anyhow, so I'm going to go ahead and pull these lugs off, do it the same way that I did before. And also I wanted to point out too that when you get ready to use these lugs, so they got the washer here, but they fit very, very tightly inside of here. So you have to use a thin wall socket on these as well. And since they fit so tight, you have to get this one barely started and then get all the rest of them started before you really hammer it home. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time really getting these to sit in there correctly. And then when I'm putting these cap screws on, I'm putting a little bit of blue Loctite on the inside. Probably overkill, but just better safe than sorry. All right. All right, guys, well, we finally got all the rims and tires back on, and I think they turned out pretty good. I was worried that with the wheel adapters, the tires would stick out a little too far, but looking down our profile here, I'd say they turned out pretty good. They're not sticking out too much more than they should. Obviously, they're sticking out some. And you can see we started to take the wheel flares off, and we ran into some issues when we started doing that on the other side. So I'm going to be having a video coming up soon talking about the body work that we're doing to this thing. I think that's probably going to be multiple parts because we got quite a bit of body work to do. But I'll be covering that more in another video. Something else I want to point out here is after these sat outside in the sun a little bit, our imperfections started to definitely show up a little bit more. So to the average onlooker, you're probably not going to notice it unless you really make a good inspection. But here's just a reminder, don't take shortcuts, don't rush through things. I'm on a little bit of a time constraint, so I rushed through this, but I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that. Take the extra day or so, do your sandblasting right, do the paint chemical stripper or whatever. But alas, they are what they are, and all in all, I'm pretty happy with them. So they turned out pretty good over here. Got some more over here, and you can see a little preview of some of the body work we're getting into. So anyhow, until next time, be on the lookout for more videos. We're gonna have another one coming up about body work. I'm gonna have another one coming up soon about the demolition of the interior, and we're gonna have another one coming up soon about the new seats I'm making for this. Well, we took seats out of something else, but I gotta make brackets to make them work. So anyhow, be on the lookout. Keep on watching and send over those recommendations and your thoughts, and tell me what it is I'm doing wrong. So thank you. God bless. Take care.